So yesterday we created a program for OpenSQL statements, and we created a new class for OpenSQL statements, that is GCL OpenSQL. So in this we created a method that is create data. So today we'll create remaining methods for update, modify and delete. So what is our class name? GCL OpenSQL. So what is this statement?
Syntax.
So we are defining the object to call the method. What is the type of this method? Instance method. It's an instance method. Okay. So every method have so here to call the instance method we have to create an object. Okay. So these objects, every objects will have its own instance, its own memory. Okay. It's not going to share any other global data like function modules. So this is to define the object and create the object. This is inline declaration syntax. Okay. So what is the replacement like? What is the previous syntax for this? If you are not using, let me comment this. If you are not using inline declaration syntax, how to define, how to create the object? First to define the object.
Data
Geo underscore obj type.
is a type reference to class.
Okay. Then before calling your method, create the object. Okay. Creating the object is important. If you use this statement inside this if statement, right, radio buttons, it will create only when you are inserting the data or when you are updating the data. It won't execute for different methods. Or if you keep it outside this, if you keep this outside the if statements, you don't need to create it for multiple times in all the for all the different operations. But if you want to keep it inside the condition, you have to create for every operation. Okay. Now let's create a method for update.
Update underscore.
Type of the method is instance method. What are the two types of methods?
Instance method and static.
Static.
Yeah, instance and static. For static methods, we don't need to create the object. You can directly call using class reference. I'll show you that. Okay, define the parameters, importing parameter and exporting parameter. Is the table name. For this also I'm using same importing and exporting parameters.
Same one.
Okay, go to the method. So I'll just copy the previous code because only so instead of insert use update. So create one more method.
Modify.
See, this importing and exporting parameter of each method is depends on the requirement. In one method, we may take different importing parameters. In another method, we may take different importing parameters. That purely depends on the requirement. Okay.
Okay.
For delete also, I've created a. Did I add any importing parameters? No, I think. So add it later.
Delete.
So IAM data is unknown because we did not add any importing parameters. Let's go back and add the importing parameters for this. Check. Activate. Okay. All four methods are ready. So if you want to test the methods, how can you test before calling it in the program? Just like function module, go here. You can see these methods, right? For example, if you want to delete any record, click on this. This is importing parameter, right? Populate the data. Let's delete record 500. Enter 500. For delete, you don't need to enter remaining values. Okay. Only primary key value is sufficient. If it is update statement, enter the all values. If it is insert statement, also enter the all values. Go back and click on execute. Sub RC is, what is the sub RC?
0.
Exporting parameter value is 0. That means it is executed successfully. So 500 got deleted, right? If you want to test the insert method, click on here, go here. I'm creating a 500 again. Name of 500 SAP. Some phone number, city. What is COU?
Country Indian.
Okay. Okay. Go back and execute. Sub RC is 0. Go and check. So like this, you can test your methods before going to call this in your program. Okay. Now go back to our program and call these methods. Now we have already, okay, we have taken 0 underscore data. Please make sure the object name must be same. But we defined, okay. Okay. Now So yesterday we have used new ABAP syntax. Here you don't need to write multiple statements for defining and creating. Today we will see how old syntax works. Okay. So let's call the method again. What is our object name? So we are creating here in this condition, insert condition. Create object for update also. But if you keep it outside the if statement, right, it is not required to create multiple times. If you create an object only once, it is sufficient for the same, because we are using the same class, right? If you are calling a different class method, we have to create a new object, we have to define a new object, and we have to create it again. But if you are using the same class method, you don't need to create object for multiple times. Okay. If you keep it outside the condition, you don't need to create it multiple times. But if you keep it inside the condition, if you select update statement, this is not going to be executed, right? Which you are creating in insert statement. That's why we have to create here also. Create object data. Okay. Call the method ABAP object patterns. What is the instance? What is the instance? Instance
Method.
means object name.
Okay.
Select your method. Update, right? Pass the importing parameter. Similar. Okay. Pass the structure. If it is a different method with different importing parameters, you have to pass the relevant data. Okay. Always make sure to pass only same types. IM underscore data and GS underscore EMP data should be referring to the same structure, or it is referring to the object that is have same fields in the same order. Both should have same fields in the same order. Okay. Do we need to use data again for sub RC? Here just remove data because we are already defining here, right? You don't need to define again. If you use data, it will give syntax error that ZV underscore sub RC is already available. We cannot define the same variable multiple times, right? But if you are using inline declaration, we are defining it multiple times. Sub RC is already declared. So I'm removing this data statement here because I'm already defining in the previous statement. Okay. That's it. How to create the next method for modify? Again, create the object.
Create object. Given it.
Call the method.
Call. Every time కాల్ చేయకుండా మనం కాపీ పేస్ట్ కూడా చేసుకోవచ్చు కదా.
You can change the name, but you should use proper name. But you should change the name.
నేమ్
In place of update name.
And also you should make sure that importing parameters and exporting parameters are same. Okay. Here instead of sub RC, check GV sub RC value. So for delete, as you asked, we can do like this. Delete data, right?
delete. Yes.
But when you change this, if the importing parameters and exporting parameters and names are different for this method, it is not going to work. Okay, we have to check that. Activate. Okay, so let's test our so this object creation is very important when you are calling these methods. Before calling your method, object should be created. Okay, somewhere, even before, like you can keep it before the if statement also, or you can create the object here itself after defining it. What is important? Object should be created before calling your method. Okay, but if you keep it inside this if statements, right, the object will create only for insert now. If you create only here, if you keep your statement here, the object only creates only for update. The object only creates only for modify. Okay, so before calling
New
the method,
syntax వాడినప్పుడు కూడా క్రియేట్ చేయాలి.
yeah, you have to create, but you don't need to use yeah, when you are using inline declaration, right, new ABAP syntax, don't use
Yes.
multiple times. Okay, don't use this statement multiple times. One time
Only
is less.
create object and call program.
Yeah, only create object is next time just use create object, don't use this one.
Okay.
First use this inline declaration, and next time onwards just create object geo underscore data. Okay,
Okay.
if you are using inline declaration. So insert 501.
Someday.
Always try to debug your program so that you can get to know like how your program is working. Always debug your program. So our work area populated with the data. So what is the radio button option we have selected? R underscore
Insert.
INS, right? Insert. Check, there is no, it is initial. Geo under object is initial. Initial means it is not created yet. Create it. Now object got created. You can also use if condition. If object is not initial, then only call the method. Okay. F6 sub RC is 0. Record created. You can also check like this. If is not initial, then only call the method. Otherwise,
They having the data.
just use some errors. Okay, error messages. Error handling is very important. Okay, so if something is wrong, please raise a error message so that user will know. So what is the issue with the program? Otherwise, no one knows what's going on in the program. Even there is some errors. going forward, always create class methods. Okay, if you're writing a program, create a class for that program, and keep your all the functionality inside a method, different methods, and call your methods in your program.
Oh.
So that we can modularize the code. Why it is not working? So if you don't create the object and call the method, it will give runtime exceptions. Where can we check the runtime exceptions? In ST22. All your runtime exceptions will be captured in ST22 transaction code. If you don't create an object and execute the method, you will get this runtime exception. Object objref not assigned. So if you go to source code extract, it will show you the exact point where this exception got raised. Okay, you can fix the program and execute. Is it clear?
It's easy to identify the error.
So ST22 is to find the error. So what if you have any runtime exceptions, all the runtime exceptions will be captured here in ST22 transaction code. Okay. If you don't create the object and try to do something, like try to call the method, it will raise the runtime exception. Okay. That's why always try to check this if object is created or not, is not initial, then only call your method. Okay, otherwise write some proper error message. So for example, if you are trying to insert a record without creating the object, so we're already creating. So for initially it is empty, right? I'm not, let me skip that statement. I did not execute that statement. I right click on here and click on go to statement. So this is not executed. This create object is not executed. I'm just doing this in debug mode. Okay, just to replicate the issue. So now it should not call the method. It should go to the message, error message. Please create the object. Now again, go to statement. Now I executed the create object. Now it should execute the method. Okay, record inserted. Is it clear? Is it clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So if you are using inline declaration, you don't need this old syntax. Okay, remove this. I am removing this. Enable this. You don't need to create here. Going forward, you don't need to define again. Whenever required, just call your object. Okay. Clear? Because if you are using inline declaration, we cannot create two objects with the same name, right? That's why we got the error if you use data statement every time. Okay. First time we use data statement to define the object zero underscore data. Next time onwards, you don't need to use it. As long as we are using the same class, we don't need to create multiple objects. See, if you want to use different object, you can use it just like this. Zero underscore data 1, zero underscore data 1. Use zero underscore data 1 to call your method. Call your method. Okay. You can define like this. Use zero underscore data 1 for this method. Okay. If you want a different object, it will work. Okay. But this is not necessary. Since we are using the same class methods, you don't need to use different object. If you want, you can create new object also for the same class. But before that, you have to define it.